Are people not understanding and making assumptions about how you are in your family? Hi there, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Saira, the show where I answer your questions about relationships, spirituality, mental health, and personal growth. Today's question comes from Kulpreet. Kulpreet says, in my culture, women are traditionally expected to have a certain role in the home. I really enjoyed being a homemaker, but other people assume I'm a doormat and call me old-fashioned. How can I help them to understand? In my culture, women are traditionally expected to have a certain role in the home. I really enjoyed being a homemaker, but other people assume I'm a doormat and called me old-fashioned. How can I help them to understand? Well, Kulpreet, the first thing I'll say is you might not be able to help them understand. They might just have their opinions, and their opinions might be inaccurate. Um, as we think about gender roles, and we think about cultures, and we think about what's expected or not expected, allowed or not allowed, that varies. It varies within families, varies within cultures and communities. And so what you think is, or what to you feels very loving, to somebody else, they might see that in a different way. So if you're doing something really loving for your family, you're being a homemaker and you're really enjoying that process, another person may, because of their own beliefs or their own understandings, have judgment around that. And I've noticed this especially amongst mothers, where there seems to be this kind of like the working moms and the stay-at-home moms and the part-time working moms, and like these judgments that fly around about what does it mean to prioritize family or work or self or etc. So, or community. So I would say the first thing is you might not be able to help them understand because they may have already made up their mind. What I would do is think of it, what I would do say about this question is that it brings up a really important area that many of us don't actually address until there's problems. So the area that it brings up is this thing around domestic duties, right? And being in the home and what it takes to run a home. And especially for heterosexual couples, there can be this assumption sometimes that generally the woman, not always, but generally that the woman would look after the household duties, and then the man might be doing some other things. And I mean, coming from thousands of years of separation in gender roles, it makes sense that there's these assumptions. We've inherited them, and many of us are challenging those assumptions. I know that I'll tell you a story. When I was first married, I remember going on my honeymoon with my husband. We were on the plane on our way to Cuba, and I said to him, just like turned to him, and I'm like, "Look, I need you to know I don't cook and clean. I am not cleaning your laundry. I am not the one who's going to be mopping your floors. That's not me, and don't expect that because that's not what I'm here for." And he looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, if I needed that, I'd get a maid." And we kind of had this like moment where it was like hairy. And he laughs about it now because I totally do all those things and I really enjoy doing some of those things. So, like running a household just takes work, and some of the work he does and some of the work I do. But most couples don't have this conversation explicitly, right? People just kind of fall into certain things that they enjoy or that they're better at. Um, and then it goes on. And I've often talked to women in their 50s and 60s. I have quite a few clients in that cohort that come to me because they feel like they've been, serving their families for decades and they're tired of it. They're actually tired of being the ones who are always doing everything and around the household. And one of the reasons for that, and John Gray talks about this in his book, what is it? Venus on Ice, Mars on Fire, Mars on Ice, Venus on Fire, or something like that. Anyway, in that book, he talks about hormonal changes that happen as you reach menopause and beyond for women, and for men, the hormonal changes that happen with aging, and how at menopause and beyond, the hormones, the oxytocin in particular, that was making you feel a sense of bonding and closeness when you served your loved ones, is no longer the, for the female brain anyway. When you serve loved ones, generally there's a feeling of oxytocin, especially when it's your choice and not an obligation. You feel closer to people by helping them. At a particular age, at a particular stage, that stops, you stop getting that biological hit, that reinforcement, that good feeling from your brain and your body. And so it starts wondering, like, you start kind of feeling like, why am I doing all, like, what is the purpose of all of this? And what's fascinating is that before this time, these partners, these women have been kind of going along and doing all of these things and not really thinking about whether it's okay with them or not, or whether it's they need to resist or not. So that's another thing, is that things will change in your brain as you age. And while, right now, maybe you're really enjoying being a homemaker, and that might change. Also keeping that in mind, that there may come a time when that isn't fulfilling anymore. And then at that point, then what, right? Have you kind of cultivated enough of a life outside of your family that there's something else to fall back on when you're no longer being like a full-time homemaker? Or maybe you will continue, and that's okay too. I think the big piece here is that the judgment, right? That old-fashioned, or the values might seem different, but really, if we come down to the root of it, all of us are trying to do the best we can with what we know. And what you know is that you really like being a homemaker, and that's great. And there's people who don't, and that's great too, and it's okay. One of the things in this question is, I want to really encourage people, women particularly, to start getting out of the shoulds, right? One of my teachers says, stop shoulding yourself, right? I should do this, I should do that, in order to be a good fill in the blank, in order to be a good mother, sister, father, friend, brother, uncle, whatever. I must do these things. And I would say, who made those rules up, right? And are those rules even realistic? So that's what I have to say about this question. I guess that the short answer is, you might not be able to help them understand. And the longer answer is part of a bigger conversation, that if you are in an intimate partnership, even in the same-sex partnership, to start talking about some of these pieces of who's going to be doing what, and what are the expectations. Because when those expectations become unspoken expectations, that's when resentment can start to build. So those are my thoughts about that one. Hopefully it helped a little bit. And we'll see you next time on Ask Dr. Saira. Bye.